What's up, you guys? Welcome to today's video. So you may or may not be able to tell from the title what today's video is, but it is the top 10 things I did while under the influence. Now, I want to make it very clear before starting this video that I'd never want to paint addicts with the same brush. This is my personal experience on my DOC. This is what I went through. Now, it is my hope that in sharing my personal experience, maybe you'll learn something you didn't know, or maybe you'll be able to tell if your loved one possibly is experiencing the same things I experienced. My mission, so to speak, on this channel is just to share what I have gone through in the hopes of giving someone hope or making someone feel less alone or helping the family member of an addict or an inmate or felon. You know, everything I talk about on this channel is very, very personal to me, and this is kind of triggering to talk about, but I think it's really important. I think learning the behaviors of someone that is going through this will better help us understand how to help that person. So if this is the first video you are seeing of me, hi, my name is Jess and I'm a recovering addict. I serve time in prison. I've experienced a lot of things and I tell a lot of stories on the channel, but these videos are the hardest for me to make because they're very personal and they're scary and they're deep, and it is somewhat triggering for me, like I mentioned. I don't know, but that's what today's video is going to be, so let's just go ahead and get started. So I think the first behavior that I had on my DOC is it took my personality and kind of made it worse. So let's just go like piece by piece, or I will ramble and I don't think I'll make much sense. So the first thing that I would do is I would just not show up. Now, my personality is introvert. I like to be alone most of the time. I can be social, but then I need to go back to recharge in my space. When I first got on a substance, it was alcohol, and that made me very, very social, and I didn't need to recharge. Because I had that substance kind of making me be very energetic and very lively. I was like Chris Farley, you know, I wanted to make everyone laugh by being dumb, and alcohol let me do that. And I was very, very social. And for the first time, a little component of my personality, which is introvert, recluse, go home and recharge, don't be around people, they drain your energy, / will to live. That piece of my brain was kind of turned off and numbed. But over the years when my DOC became, I just wouldn't show up to things. That was the first thing. I didn't want to be around people at all. I became even more of an introvert and a recluse, which is interesting because when I first started with alcohol, I was really happy that I wasn't feeling socially awkward. But as my addiction progressed, I was very flaky. Number one thing that I would do is I would not show up when I told you that I'm gonna show up. You need me for something? I'll be there, which means no, I won't. You want me to show up at 5 p.m.? I'll be there 5 p.m. 3 days later. Like I was never on time. I wouldn't show up. Sometimes I would go to something and then I would duck out, you know? So say it was a dinner and you invited me to a restaurant. I might go and I might be there for 20, 30 minutes, and then I'm gonna go to the bathroom and either use in the bathroom or just straight up leave. So that was one thing where if I wouldn't show up, and when I did show up, all I wanted to do was leave. The second thing that I would do in social gatherings or at my family's house, like on Christmas, I'm sorry, Mom, I would nod out. So that means I'd be sitting there and I'd be talking to you one second, and the next second I'm like this, just falling asleep. Mouth open, catching flies, nodding out. And I would do that because my DOC was a depressant and it would put me to sleep, basically. You know, I remember one time specifically where my brother's talking to me. I was at my mom's house and I was there with my boyfriend, and I had continuously broken my own rules, and at this point there were no rules, and I had brought my DOC into my mom's house, which was rule number one. I never wanted to do that, but I did. And I was using, and my brother's trying to talk to me, and I hear him, but I'm fading, and I know that I'm falling asleep, and I told myself, wake up. And I remember telling myself that while my brother is talking to me and I'm nodding out and I can't control it. You know, so I'm like, oh, I'm just really tired. Yeah, yeah, I am tired because I am severely under the influence. So that was another thing that I would do. If I even bothered to show up at all, I would show up in that state. Another thing that I would do is if it was summer, I'd wear long sleeves. Morning, afternoon, night. in the summer, I would wear long sleeves. Now, why the hell would you do that? Aren't you sweating? Isn't it hot? Aren't you sweaty? I was hiding my tracks. I'd have to hide them. And at first I started hiding them with makeup. And at that time in my life, I was putting more makeup on my arms than I was on my face. And I would get like the cakiest, that Maybelline like weird stuff. I saw that in someone's bathroom one time. It comes in like this little jar and it's all cakey or whatever. Mousse, it was like Maybelline mousse. And I had that and I would put that on my arms. And you could tell that my arm's covered in makeup, you know, it didn't hide it that well, but that's how I started concealing it. Eventually I just got tired of that whole thing and I would just wear long sleeves all the time. You know, I would have these little spurts of, I'm gonna wear a t-shirt, who cares? You're not gonna tell me anything. If you see it, look away. You don't like it, look away. And I was very aggressive, but we'll get to that. So the third thing that I would do is I would wear long sleeves when it is really freaking hot. That kind of brings me to the fourth thing that I would do when I was under the influence is I was quick-tempered. I would respond to things with violence. And I was very quick to do that. You know, if you got in my face about something, I'm swinging. And, you know, that sucks. I wouldn't swing on my family members, but I was aggressive with them. So at the height of my addiction, my family and close friends, they didn't even know what they could say to me. They were tiptoeing around me because they had no idea what I was gonna say. And even admitting that to myself, let alone online, breaks my heart to think that my family was tiptoeing around me because they had no idea if I was gonna blow up. That sucks. Like, there is no excusing that. I was an angry person, so like I said at the beginning of this, sometimes that substance would bring out my worst personality traits, and anger was one of them. I used to wake up so angry, and I had a chip on my shoulder, and that sucks. You know, it really breaks my heart, but I am very proud to say that I have mended those relationships with my family, and they don't tiptoe around me anymore. My family is very blunt. They're as real as me. They're honest. They'll tell you what they think. So can you imagine someone with that personality not being able to say what they think? I'm sure it drove them crazy. It took time to mend those relationships with my family, and now I am not a quick-tempered person. Now I kind of internalize a lot of things, and I have a hard time expressing my feelings. Back then, I would express them in rage, which sucks, you know? That really sucks that I would express that in rage. So the fifth thing that I would do is I wouldn't answer my phone. You know, it could ring and ring and ring and ring and ring. I'd eventually turn it off if I got annoyed. I just wasn't answering the phone. And that's because I don't want to talk to you. When I was a dealer, I was a very controlling person. You're not gonna call me 100 times. I saw your call pop up, I'll come through when I come through. You know, don't call me a million times. So I wouldn't answer my phone. You know, if there was an emergency, how the hell would I know? I'm not gonna answer it. You know, and at one point I had other people answering my phone for me because I got so annoyed with my phone ringing. You know, that's so contradictory because I want to make money and I was a hustler and all this crap, but then I wouldn't answer the phone when the phone would ring, and I would become annoyed at the phone ringing. And what's weird about that is I remember, like, every time I went to jail, it felt like my phone was vibrating. Now, I'm sure you guys remember those, like, flip phones from Samsung. When you put it on vibrate, it was like hostile. So every time I got locked up, I would have like nightmares of my phone vibrating, and I swear I could feel my phone vibrating. I'm in a jail cell, I don't have my phone, but like my brain, my subconscious was like, the phone's ringing, the phone's ringing, the phone's ringing. It was nonstop. And the last time that I got out of prison, I was in for drugs. I found it so peaceful to not have a phone. And I enjoyed not having it, but I had to get it for a job and for, you know, to get my daughter and all of that. So, you know, I wanted out of that world. So kind of being forced out of that world was good for me. Another thing that I wouldn't do is I wouldn't go outside. In the height of my addiction to my DOC, I wouldn't leave the house. I didn't want to go outside. Now, I needed fresh air. I needed to go outside for my mental health, for, I don't know, anything, and I just wouldn't do it. And then if I would go outside, I would only go outside at night. I can't even imagine not going outside for weeks at a time, but I wouldn't go outside. I didn't want to go outside. I didn't want to run into anybody. I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to talk to anyone. And I really struggled with that for a long time. I was in my house, completely isolated and alone, and that worsened my addiction. Another thing that I would do is I would lie. I would lie about everything. everything. I would lie about how I'm feeling, how I'm doing. I'm fine, everything's fine. Don't worry about it, I'm good. I would say that so often. I was lying to my family and close friends, but I was also lying to myself. I have everything under control. I'm okay, I'm fine. Yes, I ate today. I would lie about those things so that other people didn't worry about me. And honestly, I would lie about it just so I didn't have to hear you tell me that I am sick, or I need to eat, or I am not okay, or no, you don't have anything under control. So I would lie a lot just to get people off of my back. You know, I didn't want anyone to tell me that I need to go to rehab. I didn't want anyone to tell me how to live my life. And just to go back to the aggression, I was aggressive about it. I defended my addiction. It was the only thing that made me feel good. I hadn't felt good in a very long time. And that was so hard for me, you know? So I defended the one thing, that substance, that made me feel good. So lying was, you know, top of the list for sure. Something that I wouldn't do is I wouldn't grocery shop. So kind of a good way to tell if someone's living a healthy life, open their fridge. If the only thing they have in their fridge is like baking soda, it might be a good indicator of, you know, they are not living a healthy lifestyle, right? If there's no food in the fridge, chances are they're not really eating anything, you know? So when I was on a different substance in Arkansas, I barely ate anything, you know, but on my DOC in New York, guys, you're just gonna have to fill in the blanks here because YouTube is kicking my ass. That was a different thing. I would eat maybe once a day. It wasn't a top priority, but I slept and I ate and I was a little bit better. That was a much darker time. So, which will have to be a video for another time, but I didn't have groceries. Now, a lot of people talk about hygiene not being a top priority. For me, I showered every day, brushed my teeth every day, I had clean clothes. I was somewhat put together, you know? I think that's just a really awful stereotype that all addicts don't shower or take care of themselves. That wasn't my story, that's not true for me. I definitely didn't do that. You know, so just speaking for me personally, I definitely did shower every day, but you know, the being flaky and not showing up and being aggressive and wearing long sleeves in the summer, falling asleep at family events, dipping out at family events, not answering my phone. You know, these are all my behavioral patterns when I was using my DOC. And if you see your loved one maybe acting that way, or their behaviors just change, they've lost interest in things, they seem isolated, they seem withdrawn in a conversation with you, or you're talking to them and they're not really listening, you know, these may be signs that your loved one is going through that. You know, I remember people having conversations with me and I'd be like, yep, yeah. But if you ask me what you just said, I can't tell you what you just said. So that's another thing that I would do is you'd be having these conversations with me and be like, yeah. Now I'm like tinkering with something else, or my mind is elsewhere. I'm staring off into space and you're talking to me and I'm like, yeah. I don't hear you. I've had full conversations before, and when someone asked me if I remember what they told me a week ago, I have no clue what you said, you know? So if you're talking to your loved one and they're like, yeah, like they're just agreeing with you, ask them, did you hear what I said? Are they having meaningful conversations with you, or do they seem withdrawn? Because I was very withdrawn. You couldn't tell me very much, you know? I really hope that this video has helped somehow. I hope that gives you some kind of insight on the behaviors of a possible addict or someone that you know that is struggling. Again, I don't want to paint everyone the same. This is just my personal experience of what I have gone through. I'm gonna end today's video here. I'm sure I'm leaving things out. As always, I love you guys. Stay safe, stay sober, whatever that looks like to you. And I will see you in my next one.